The strange secret behind a principal's chair. Hello, friends. You're listening to The School Principal Part 1, written by Jalal Al-e Ahmad. This podcast also has a video version available on our YouTube channel.
When I walked in, a cigarette was in my hand and I couldn't even bother to say hello. I just felt like standing tall out of stubbornness. The head of education glanced at my hand for a moment when he gave me permission to sit, then finished writing whatever he was working on. He was just about to pay attention to me when I placed the duplicate of the decree on his desk. Neither of us said a word. He flipped through the duplicate along with the attached papers, puffed out his throat pompously, and said calmly, as if without anger, "We don't have space, sir. This won't do." Every day they hand someone a decree and send him to me. Just yesterday, to the Director General. I wasn't in the mood for this nonsense, so I cut him off. "Would you kindly just make a note at the bottom of this paper?" I tapped my cigarette against the shiny ashtray on his desk. The desk was spotless and perfectly tidy, like the living room of a newlywed couple. Everything in its place, not a speck of dust. Only my cigarette ash was too much, like spit on a freshly shaved face. He picked up the pen, wrote something beneath the decree, signed it, and I walked out the door. Done. I couldn't stand him. With his airs and pretenses, it was obvious he was newly appointed. Forcing out his throat pompously, speaking softly while staring into people's eyes as if ears weren't needed to hear him. I had already paid 150 tomans in the General Personnel Office just to get this decree signed. I had even pulled some strings, and I had been running around for 2 months. The paperwork was airtight. I knew that whether he accepted it or not, the matter was already settled. He knew it too. Surely, with all his posturing, he realized he had embarrassed himself, but what was done was done. The Personnel Office had asked me, just for form's sake, to also show the decree to the head of education, and that's how it came to this. Otherwise, who could have said a word against the General Personnel Office? It was a ministry, after all, with its own personnel office. Not a joke. Deep down, I was confident enough that I didn't even need these arguments. But I felt the real culprit was this damned cigarette, which I had thought I'd afford from the extra salary of my new position. Truth is, I was sick of teaching. 10 years of spelling out the alphabet, 10 years of watching children's blank faces as I recited the most trivial nonsense, explaining how istigna is written with a GH and istikra with a Q, and talking about the Khorasani style, the Indian style, the oldest Persian poems and rhetorical tricks, all this nonsense. I realized I was becoming an ass, so I thought, why not become a principal? An elementary school principal. No more teaching, no more tormenting my conscience between grades of 12 and 14, no more wasting my summer giving 7s to the most idiotic, brainless students just so I could save the sweetest days of vacation. That's why I started. I went and asked around, found a fixer, put my hand in the hand of the personnel office, made the arrangements, everyone happy. And one day they gave me the address of the school, told me to check it out, see if I liked it. And I went. It was a new 2-story school standing alone on the mountainside, facing the sun. A wealthy lover of culture had built it right in the middle of his own land, lending it to the ministry for 25 years so it would become a school. Of course, in the meantime, roads would be built, people would move in, neighborhoods would grow, until parents burned with envy and bought land nearby to shorten their children's path. Then they'd build houses, and his land, once worth a few shahis per meter, would sell for 100 tomans. The man had even had his name inscribed in beautiful script on blue tiles with decorative patterns across the school wall. Naturally, the school bore his name. There were no neighbors yet to argue whether to carve out lines of Saadi or Baba Taher for the wall of their alley. The school's signboard was grand, bold, legible, visible from 100 meters away, proclaiming, "He who is capable," and so on with whatever lofty motto you like, and above it, the lion and sun emblem, standing on 3 legs, barely keeping its balance with Lady Sun on its back, unibrowed, whip in hand. Around the school, nothing but wilderness, empty and dry, for the stretch of 3 arrow shots. To the north, a row of pine trees peeking over the mud wall of some garden, drawing a dark streak across the sky. Surely, within 25 years this whole place would be crowded with honking cars, children shouting, peddlers crying out their goods. The man's bread was buttered well. Yes, I had these thoughts the very day I visited the school incognito. And in the end, I concluded that people would eventually flock here, no doubt. So I was at ease. I told myself, they deserve a place where water doesn't seep under them. And I set out to claim the job. That day, I had also learned that the previous principal was in prison. Probably his head smelled of trouble, and now he was paying for sins he hadn't even committed, or that someone else had committed far away. Among the cronies of the head of education, no one wanted to break his back for a job that only brought a slight raise in salary. And no one outside the city was interested either. I had gathered this information from the personnel office, and since the habit of writing begging letters hadn't yet spread, I never imagined that man would be released anytime soon. Nor did I think anyone else would be longing for a remote school in the middle of nowhere, with its harsh winters and difficult commute. So I was confident. Besides, the General Personnel Office had already approved. True, before the smell of money arose, they had raised 2 or 3 moral and formal objections. For instance, they had said, there must be something fishy. Why would someone with 10 years of teaching experience want to become a principal? Their implication was that maybe I had gone mad, or maybe I had some defect, or perhaps I was even some kind of pervert. And the matter dragged on until the middleman hinted that I needed to loosen my purse strings. And I did. 150 tomans a month for the position wasn't something I could ignore. And if I did ignore it, then what? I'd just go back to the same classes, the same readings, the same Shahar Makala, Kabush Nama, cultural yearbooks, and all those idiocies. So I walked straight from the head of education's office back to the general personnel office, handed the duplicate decree to the fixer who'd been managing my case, explained what happened, and left. 2 days later, I returned, and as I had guessed, my hunch was right. The head of education had said, I don't want these arrogant young graduates barging into every office, cigarette in hand. But the fixer had assured him, not at all, this man is different, he's above the rest, and so on, laying it on thick. He told me not to worry, and that I should go see him again next Thursday. And so I did. This time the head of education stood up when I entered. Oh, sir, why didn't you say so earlier? And he went on with his chatter, ordered tea, complained about his employees, and, as he said himself, put me in the picture about the situation. Then, with his own car, he drove me to the school. They rang the bell earlier than usual, and in front of the teachers and the vice principal, he gave a grand speech praising the virtues of the new principal, me. Then he left, leaving me with a 6-classroom, newly established school, 1 vice principal, 7 teachers, and 235 students. I was officially a school principal.
The next part of this story will be uploaded tomorrow. What you will hear in the next episode. A new principal arrives at a strange school with even stranger teachers, and the adventures have only just begun. Looking for entertainment? On this channel, we share Iranian poems, stories, and podcasts in different languages for you. If you are interested in Iranian literature, culture, and tales, this is the best place for you.